The world feels like it is spinning faster than ever. Constant change, nonstop demands, and a pace that rarely lets up. Leading through this kind of external chaos is hard enough, but when your inner world feels just as turbulent, it can feel nearly impossible. In this episode, we are talking about what it takes to lead well when you're overwhelmed, scattered, or stretched thin. Our guest shares powerful, practical ways to center yourself in both mind and action so you can lead with clarity, steadiness, and strength no matter what is happening around you. Today's guest is Rob Kalwarowsky. Rob is a world-renowned executive coach, author of the best-selling book Capitalizing on Chaos, and a keynote and TEDx speaker. And I am also honored to call Rob my personal executive coach. Now, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I share new episodes and other tips for managers every week. Now, here's my conversation with Rob. Thank you so much for joining me today again, Rob, because I've had you on the show before, and I loved our conversation so much when we talked about the different types of toxic bosses that I actually hired you to be my coach, which was the best decision I've ever made in my business because you have helped me so much get past my own mindset stuff. And I'm really glad to have you on the show today to share more of how you approach all of that mindset and self-sabotaging and the things that we do in our own brains that keep us from showing up and being our best. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mamie. It was amazing to work with you, and just happy to be here.
And I should shout out saying, if anyone is looking for a coach, obviously I coach, but really, if you're really looking for a coach, you should totally call Rob because he's really amazing. Okay, so let's talk about what this framework is, because you captured it into your new book. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the book's called Capitalizing on Chaos. And really, where we go is if we want to be the most effective leaders, especially in this moment of time where chaos is absolutely out of control. Global uncertainty is at its highest levels ever. Since the election, it's gone up 330%. And it's not just Rob saying this. The World Uncertainty Index tracks this. And we feel it, right? We feel it in our businesses. We see it in the economy. We see it in the political, like the geopolitical space. We're unsure, like things change like tweet by tweet now, I guess. And really what this book is all about is if we want to be effective leaders, if we want to take advantage of this moment in time, we have to work on the internal chaos first, and that ripples into our families, our businesses, and the world. And so just like the election rippled the internal chaos of some leaders into the world in a way that's disruptive for everybody, we can do this in our businesses, but actually make it in a positive way where we're going to have better employees, higher performing, more profitability, more innovation, and also we're going to feel better doing it.
Yeah, it's really hard to lead others when you're feeling unmoored yourself, right? When we're feeling scattered and we're feeling frustrated and confused and living in the ambiguity, it's so hard to show up and do your good work and also just be the leader you need to be for your people. 100% agreed. Can you share some examples or describe what does that internal chaos look like? Like what does it feel like? And also how does it present itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most common things that I see in the folks that I work with is what I call the DIY leader.
I should raise my hand right now, I think.
Yeah, and so it's normal, right? It's like we're raised and we get through life and we get to these levels of success where it's like, I have to do everything because it's got me here, right? And where it leads you is you feel like you're carrying the world. You feel like you have to be the expert in everything. Your team asks you questions, you have to be the person with the answers. You have to hold up the weight and the stress and the performance because it's all on you. And where that leads eventually is burnout and also lack of performance. But it also doesn't allow you to scale as a leader, to get those levels and those promotions that you need, and also to grow your company if you're an entrepreneur. And so, like, I was working with a CEO last year, and he came to me. Their business was about 50 people, about $3 million. And he was a classic DIY leader. It was like, and it makes sense. He started the business with a co-founder 7 years ago, and there was two of them. And of course you have to do everything because you have no money. And so you have to scale your business. But now you're 50 people, you're $3 million. You can't do it all. And he was basically working all the time. He wasn't delegating. There was some micromanagement in different spots about like customer service. And like if customers had a problem, he would jump in and solve it. Like there was those kind of things. And really, we did some internal work. And in the fourth session, he had this moment of realization where it was like, hey, I'm the one who's holding my business back.
Wow.
And that was when that DIY part sort of stepped aside, and we were able to now start to work on leadership and delegation and empowering people. And of course, that took some time because they didn't necessarily buy in immediately. But ultimately, this year, they're going to do $11 million in business. And he also works less than he did. He spends more time with his family. He works out more. And he actually takes real vacations now.
It's so amazing how it's not just the behaviors, right? And this is also something I learned from working with you, is that we often know the behaviors, but we don't do them, not because they're hard or we don't know them, or even like maybe we're afraid. It's actually deeper than that. It's like in our psyche that until we make that mindset shift, we're never going to fully buy into those behaviors. And so we're either not going to do them, or we're going to kind of do them, but find reasons why they didn't work because we didn't actually put our whole heart into it. Can you talk a little bit more about the role of the mindset in there? And obviously it was very powerful for this client of yours. And when he was actually able to shift his mind, make significant changes in his behavior.
Yes. And so chaos and uncertainty causes us to go into fear or some version of this, which is a fear response. And basically what happens is the amygdala shuts down the executive functioning of your brain, and it takes over, and you get the fight or flight response. Now, there's fight, flight, there's also freeze, and there's fawn. So fawn is like you're sucking up to leaders that have more power than you or that you think can help you achieve your goals. But none of those responses that are the only thing you have access to help you lead yourself effectively, or your team, or your business, or your family, or anything. That's where we start. And so if you feel that just a little bit of fear or that uncertainty or whatever, where I always like to start with folks is just like take a deep breath and just say to yourself, I'm human. Because just in that moment, acknowledging that is going to help you then make a better decision next, or choose the behavior you want to do. Now, what you mentioned, Mamie, is like this stuff is in your subconscious, right? So it's important that when it's like behaviors, right? So it's like if you want to call your biggest client and ask them for a deal, if you want to ask that person on a date, if you want to write that book, do that TED Talk, ask for the promotion, ask for the raise. A lot of people don't. Because they're like, and you feel that imposter syndrome, or you feel a voice going, don't do it. You're going to get rejected. Don't do it. That's the moment where you can take that deep breath and say you're human and then choose to do it. But also there's the deeper work, which is like, obviously goes a little deeper. And that's what I do one-on-one. And also we talk a little bit about in the book, but it's like, acknowledging that all of us have these parts that were created They're not bad. They actually try to help you. And it was helpful before. And now you're an adult and it's not helpful. And so it's just a matter of updating your brain to what you do today.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to break this down a little bit more because we're talking about now parts, which I found to be super helpful in our work together. Can you explain more about these different parts and kind of where they come from?
Yes. So ultimately, where we all started mostly when we were born was self. And so you'll see this in your kids, right? Is like they'll go, I want to climb a tree, and they'll just climb a tree, right? And they'll just do it, right? There's no inhibition. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of presence. Like your dog will probably be like this too. Like I look at Winston and he just goes like, I'm just going to go, run after this bird, right? Like that's kind of what it's like. And then when we go through life, we get trauma, or some people call them adverse childhood experiences. I'm not even saying they necessarily are even bad. This is the hard part for parents to understand is like literally you could have a moment where, your son or daughter is playing with blocks in the corner, and then your son or daughter comes in and they're older and, they got an A on their math test, and you go, wow, that's amazing. And you hug them, you say, I love you. And then the son or daughter that's playing blocks goes, I need to do well on my homework for my mom or dad to love me. And then they're 45 now going, I have to succeed in my career because that's how I get love from my parents. But it's not even a conscious thing. It's just like that was what happened in that moment, right? And so parts of us are created that they're designed to protect us. So that part goes, I don't want to experience not being loved. And so I'm going to overachieve or hyperachieve so I can always feel love. And there are other ones, people pleasing is one, doing it all yourself is one, like the imposter syndrome is one. There are many of these parts, but ultimately what happens is they're helpful until they're not.
Mm-hmm. It's such a refreshing framing to see these parts of ourselves as not a bad thing, but a natural thing that we all have and that can be redirected so that we still get the benefits that they can provide, even when the way that they've been showing up for us has kind of outlived its purpose. And I think that for me was also a really helpful kind of nuance to really understanding my own mindset and my own behaviors was, oh, I'm doing this because it's worked for me before. And now I'm at a moment where it's not working. So how do I take that same desire? Like, I don't want to be rejected, but the way that I'm going about it is actually not helping me. So there's a different way I can approach it. Do you have another story or example you can share with us of another manager who is maybe facing a different form of chaos and how that played out?
Totally. So what you said is we all have these parts, right? 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their life. So you all that are listening, I'm sure you've experienced it. I think it's closer to 100% because it just really depends what room and what, context is going on, right? And so I had a leader in 2022 and he came to me and he was like, basically he got in his dream job. He was the CIO of a world-renowned design company. So you think everything's great, right? But the problem was he felt that imposter syndrome and it was paralyzing him from taking action. And so they hired him to do a digital transformation for their company and then start rolling that out for their clients. But when he would go into the executive meetings, he would say that he would feel like other people were more qualified because they went to prestigious universities or they had more prestigious careers or they just worked longer, like things like that. And it took a few months, but we were able to work with that part and allow it to step aside. And that was when he actually was like, you know what? I am the most qualified to run a digital transformation because I've had my whole career has been around tech leadership. And I also have this incredible perspective that tech leaders not always have, which is the blend between people, culture, and the technology. And so it's not about choosing the tech because it has the most fanciest widgets. It's like, how does this interact with our organization, our processes, and people so we can make this happen? And that led to him driving that successful digital transformation, doing it for clients, which ultimately led to him becoming the youngest partner and the least tenured partner in that company. And then he went on to speak at some of the biggest tech stages in the world, like Collision,
Wow.
Fast Company's Entrepreneur Summit, and like those things, which like just absolutely, he's a rock star.
It's amazing when we get out of our own way what's possible, right? Like that's what this all comes down to. I'm curious, obviously this is hard work, right? Really understanding our parts, being able to connect with them, being able to not judge them, being able to help them take a step aside or show up differently for us. And we're not going to solve it for everyone on this podcast, but I'm curious if you can share just at least at the high level, what does that work look like? Like, what are these conversations that we're having with ourselves that allow us to start making progress in our mindset?
I always say it's just like leading your team at work. It's just in your own mind. And it comes from internal family systems, which is actually developed from family systems therapy. And literally, Dick Schwartz, he took the family systems model and because he was doing work with people, he was like, well, they hear different voices and they have different reactions. And why don't I just put this and say the model is internal? And so literally that's what it's like. It's like, be empathetic, be compassionate, listen to your parts, build trust. Like all the stuff maybe that you've talked about for, on this show for years is exactly what you just need to do within your own mind. The only switch is they're going to be child parts. Basically, they're between when you're born and, 12, 13 mostly. And so you have to see them as that. And then they also start to think that you're that age too. And so updating them to be like, no, it's 2025 now. I'm an adult. I'm leading a team. I'm leading a business. I'm leading context is different is the second step because they think they're trapped in the past.
Yeah, I remember when we did this, it was super helpful, even like the step before, which is I am not my thoughts, right? Like I have a self and then I have thoughts. And those thoughts can originate from myself, but they can also originate from these parts, which are part of me, but not wholly me. And that just blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that voice that I'm hearing that's saying, are you sure you want to, say that price to that client? Are you sure you want to write that video and talk about that topic? That's not me saying those things. That's some part of me that's trying to protect me. And once I was able to start to say, okay, what's going on here? Let me just have a little conversation. And my husband always jokes because my parts show up as animals. I don't know why, but they do. And so he's like, did you talk to any owls today? And I was like, oh my gosh, stop it now. But once I was able to externalize those and have those conversations with them, it really does change how much in control you feel, talking about being in chaos, how much more control you feel like you have over your choices because you're not making them out of this little voice in your head. You're actually making them as yourself, as a thoughtful adult who is looking at a situation and deciding how you want to show up there.
Yeah, it's 100% true. Like before I could do any of this with clients, I taught the framework in conflict management because I was like, this allows people to look at the other person and go, they aren't an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a hurt child part inside them that is acting out because it had some moment at some period in time where this was helpful to them. And even just having that context in your mind goes, ah, and that allows you to look at them differently. And we all have this, right? Like, I don't know, the other day I was taking my wife to the center and I got stuck in traffic for half an hour and I was like mad, right? And it's like, I had to sit in my car when I got home and I was like, I'm human. Like, it's normal to get mad at traffic. I mean, I don't know. Probably most people do it. Maybe I do. But it's like we all have these moments. Like, there's not, there's probably 3 people in the world that like sit on top of a mountain and float, and meditate, right? But it's like, it's normal. You get tired, you get frustrated. Your biggest client calls you and cancels the contract, or like you make a big mistake on some proposal, or like, your business isn't doing well. Like, it's normal to feel stressed or feel frustrated or feel sad or feel these things. And sometimes when we feel those ways, these parts of us take over. And that's like, and they do things that we feel bad about later. And I'm not saying that those actions are like completely forgivable. What I'm saying is, now that you know that, it's on you to grow and learn. And that's the key piece is, yes, totally. Like, 5 years ago, I did things, I yelled at people, I'm not happy about it. Like, and I went on this path and I learned, and now I do things differently. And that's the point of this show, right? Is we all trying to get better. And so,
yes,
like, let's go.
Yeah. And I love what you just said too about being able to look at other people and understand that they are not just their behaviors, right? So when someone's really frustrating you at work, being able to look and say, they are doing what they think is best. It might not be working, but the way that you can show up and give them feedback totally shifts when you feel like, when you walk into that room and that conversation, understanding that they're not trying to be a jerk. They're not trying to screw things up. Something is going on internally or in their context that's setting something off for them in their brain that's making them show up in these ways, that's making them act these ways. And if we can approach that conversation from that place of empathy, it totally shifts. At least for me, it shifts how I feel, how comfortable I feel going into that feedback conversation and how open they are to having that conversation with me.
That's really the hack, is you have people, I mean, the stats bear this out, right? So, it's like 20% of people do their best work. They're engaged, they're happy, they go the extra mile, they do the things. And roughly 60% of your team, they're just kind of doing the minimum. And then another 20% are actively working against you.
Oh, gosh.
Right? And so, and then ultimately you as their direct manager, you actually impact us the most. You're 70% of basically the variance between those folks. And so if you can start, one is working on your own chaos and getting that from a place of self, it changes how you feel. And then you become more clear, more confident, you have more connectedness, you feel more presence, your perspective changes. And that's when that impacts your team. And that's when you get better results, and like engagement goes up. And obviously engagement has all the great statistics behind it around productivity, profitability, sick days, turnover, quality, innovation. And really, that's the only way right now that you're going to truly take advantage of this moment in time where the uncertainty is so high, where everybody else is pulling back and turtling up in fear.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Can you give us one more example of an internal chaos and how we can approach it differently?
Yes. One that I see often also is people pleasing. And I have a little bit of this too, right? It's some version of like, this is when people will also strive to burning out. because you're trying to do a million things for a million people. And often what this does is it takes you away from working on your goals. And so you say yes to things, and then you say yes, and then you're like, oh no, now I have too much. But you've already said yes. So you sort of committed, and it's hard to go back and be like, Mamie, you know what? Like, I'm not really going to do that now. Right. And so again, right, you can start off with just when someone asks you for something, is just, I always say, if you can pause for, like if they do it by email or by text message or DM, it's like, take that deep breath and say to yourself, I'm human, and then make the choice. And think about your goals, think about your values, because that's going to help you with that decision. If it's more in the moment, what I always recommend is like basically stall in a sense.
Yes.
It's like, hey, let me look at what I have on my plate and let me get back to you in, I don't know, tomorrow or in 15 minutes. Like, it doesn't have to be that long, but like get that moment to stall, because then you can get back to, okay, what are my goals? What are my priorities? And is this part of this? Right? And then obviously the deeper work comes with, like, often people pleasers, one is they don't get the success that they deserve. And so because they're just doing things for other people, they're not driving their own goals, they're not achieving their results, and then they're not asking for promotions or raises. They're sort of going the route of, if I just work really hard and my boss likes me, then I'm going to get promoted. And that's not actually how you get ahead.
Yes. And it's so important to recognize that it's not just the behaviors in the moment of people pleasing, but that it actually is spreading ourselves too thin and keeping us from making bigger strides in our own work that we want. And so while it feels really good in the moment to say yes to someone because you want to be helpful, right? And that's kind of this other dimension is, right, these parts, as you said before, they're trying to help us. And we think that by saying yes to things, we're being helpful, we're getting opportunities, we're being visible, we're developing relationships and loyalty and connection with those folks. But then you have to see the downside is we're not doing our own things that are more important, that are taking us forward with our goals, with our team, with our work. And so it's easy to misconstrue some of these behaviors because they do really feel helpful, even when they're not. But we do have to wrap up. So, Rob, where can people learn more about you, get a copy of your book, listen to your podcast, all that stuff?
Absolutely. So Capitalizing on Chaos, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. The Audible audiobook is there too. So you can find that anywhere you buy books. And then for everything from me, just go to robkalwarowsky.com. Maybe I'll put that in the notes because it's hard to spell. But for folks out there, if you're thinking about why, and you're also trying to gather that courage and that internal motivation to start on this journey, go to robkalwarowsky.com/reason, and there's a free worksheet there, which is designed to get you over that hump of status quo, because there is 59% of people don't take action towards their goals because they feel paralyzed. And so even just writing your goals down, like, it's a common stat, it increases the probability that you achieve them by, I think it's like 47%. And then sharing your goal with somebody else actually even takes it to 70%. And so you can spend 5 minutes on this tool and it will increase, and then just send it to me or send it to your best friend or send it to your whoever you want. And literally you'll increase your goal, the probability you get your goal to 70%, which is the best thing you can do in 5 minutes.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you again so much, Rob. I always love talking with you and learning from you.
Thanks, Mamie.